All right, let's go ahead and jump right in here. We're going to start off with our first image, which is baby in the froggy pose. This is a composite image, meaning it's two images merged into one to complete this pose safely. Okay, so this is going to be our end edit here. And this is the image that we'll be starting out with. With the froggy pose, you want one of you or an assistant holding baby's hands, and the second one with your hand up above, propping up baby's head. So that way you're able to merge the one with the clean hands down here on the bottom, and I'll show you exactly how to do that, and then we'll go ahead and finish off editing the image so we can get this complete look that you see here. Okay, so let me go back to my image here. I like to start off with the one where you have the clean head, and you just need to go over and replace the hands here at the bottom. So I have this one open, and next I want to place the second image on top, and I can do that by going to File, Place Embedded, or depending on your version of Photoshop, it may just say Place. And I'm just going to navigate and find my second image. And here's mine. I'm going to click on Place. And just press Enter. Okay, to move it around, you can grab your Move tool here in the Tools panel and just move that around a little bit there. Now, notice it's placed automatically as a smart object. You can see this little square here in the right-hand corner. We're looking at the Layers panel. Okay, we'll be working a lot with the Layers panel, and you'll notice that each layer is just piling on top of the other as we add it. So definitely pay attention to that here as well. Okay, so we don't want this top image to be a smart object so that we can make changes. So let's go ahead and go to Layer. Okay, and then we're going to go to Rasterize Smart Object. Okay, notice that little square went away, so we're good to go. Next, I want to make sure that we can only apply his hands and some of his arms down here at the bottom. We don't want to apply the entire image, so let's go ahead and create a layer mask. Okay, notice I still have my top layer selected, and I'm just going to click on this little rectangle with the circle inside of it. And notice there's a little rectangle next to my layer now. This is my layer mask. It's already selected. You can see the white brackets around it. Now, the rule of thumb when using layer masks, and this is the only rule you need to remember, is that black conceals and white reveals. Notice the entire layer mask is white. So if I were to paint on my image with the layer mask selected in black, I'm going to conceal that image. So I don't want to see this entire image. I want to see mostly the image underneath it. I just need his hands. So let's go ahead and see how that works. I'm going to grab my brush, and I did want to say something else real quick here. I picked this particular image in Froggy Pose because it's a tough one. Notice how I got him at different angles. Okay, his head's kind of propped up differently. It's also a different distance slightly. He's a little bit bigger in the image underneath than he is in the image on top here. So this is a tough one, and I just wanted to be able to show you guys that you can do this with any image. I see so many people saying, oh, I didn't get it just right. I can't use that image. I'm so bummed. And so I wanted to show you that you can do it. It may not be quite as fast as it would if you got it just right in camera, but you can still do it, and we're going to show you how today. Okay, so let me go ahead and grab that brush. Remember, black conceals. So we're looking at our colors down here at the bottom of our tools panel. You should have white and black. If not, go ahead and click on these two itty bitty squares on the top left to reset your colors. And to toggle between them, just click on that arrow. Okay, so we're bringing black to the foreground color. In our options panel here at the top, make sure your brush opacity is at 100%. I usually keep my flow around 90. It's at 89 right now, and that's fine. I'm just gonna start brushing. Notice how everything is going away where I brush, and that's because I'm concealing this top image. Also notice in my on my layer mask, which I still have selected, very important, you can start seeing the black on the top there. Okay, so black conceals. And I really just want to erase most of this image except for baby's hands. And actually not on the bottom, because that's where I was reaching my hand through on the other image. So if you make a mistake like I just did, bring white to the foreground color. Remember, white reveals, okay? And you can just bring back that detail. There we go. Okay, so it's gonna look very funny right off the bat. So it's a lot of back and forth, and it really is like creating you know, any art piece. You know, you just go back and forth and mold and meld until it's finally looking the way you want it. So I'm just gonna start moving this around here and matching it up. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. Still looking very funny, and that's fine. We're just gonna keep going back and forth here until we get it looking just right. Okay, I really liked the original face in the image underneath. So I'm gonna have to match up his hands very, very nicely to make sure that this is looking good. Okay, so his chin is there. I don't want that. All right, so now at this point, I'm just gonna have to keep moving his hands until I feel that it's working best. And remember how this particular image was, the top one was a little bit smaller, so I'm gonna have to actually go in and resize it. There we go. I think that's looking better. And again, this is just a lot of back and forth until you find that it's working best with your image. So I'm gonna have to go in and do some cloning to remove this finger here. This is from the bottom image. If you're kind of getting confused with the two images melding, just click the little eyeball on that top layer to turn it off, and you can see what's still showing through there. Okay, so I still have some painting to do. I think I want to see his little fingers on the bottom image there. There's his chin. Okay, so his cheek's kind of looking funny here because I took his fingers away, and that's okay. I'm going to use the spot healing brush there to really fix that up and make that look good. If you can't fix it through taking away or adding parts of your top image here, that's okay. That's why you have the healing brush in Photoshop, and it really is an amazing tool. So definitely use it when you need to. I'm just going to turn this on and off again real quickly. Okay, so I'm really liking that. I feel like his hand on this side is a little bit blurred, which really works in my favor since this hand is really hard to match up. Okay, his fingers are just digging into his cheek a little bit there. We're gonna keep that as is. So if you have Photoshop, you can go ahead and click on your history panel, take a snapshot if you want, just in case you want to refer back to this particular state, and that snapshot will be right there at the top of your panel. I just clicked on this little menu button here in New Snapshot. Now, if you have elements, you do not have the ability to take snapshots. No big deal. And now I'm going to go to Layer and Flatten Image. Okay. Also, another thing that I think I forgot to mention, when you're using your brush to make it larger and smaller, I use the left and right bracket keys. Okay, So let's go ahead and duplicate our background layer. I never like to work on the original background layer because it may be hard to go back and make changes to that later. So let's just not get ourselves in that rut. So I'm just going to click on it and drag it down to this little square with the folded corner, and now I have a background copy. Let's go ahead and create our layer mask. Actually, we may not need to do that in this case. I usually do it just by default in case I need it, but let's go ahead and continue. I'm going to click on my spot healing brush tool. If you don't see it, just right click. Okay, it may look slightly different, again, depending on which version of Photoshop you have. Now this you can also make larger and smaller by using the left and right bracket keys. Okay, whoops, let's undo that. I had my paintbrush selected there again. Okay, so I'm just gonna start clicking around. Okay, depending on what you're working on, it may not look just perfect right away. Notice how I'm clicking quite a bit just to get something that looks varied and natural for the baby. Don't think you're doing it wrong. That's a lot of what cloning and the spot healing brush tool is. Now in this case, I'm going to also grab the patch tool. If the spot healing brush just isn't looking very natural, I will circle the area that I'm trying to fix and just drag it over to another similar area and drop. Okay, that looks a lot smoother. And it's really, really simple to do. There we go. Super, super simple. Okay, so let's go ahead and just go back and fit the screen here. Okay, so I'm going to flatten my image again, and now we're going to do something kind of fun. We're going to take the blanket and flip it over to this side as well, because I felt like the image was very imbalanced and I wanted the blanket to go all the way across here. So let's go ahead and duplicate that background layer again, drag and drop on the little square with the folded corner. And I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. Okay, so again, we're just using the blanket here. So I'm going to create my layer mask, click on the little rectangle with the circle inside of it, and this time we're just going to completely conceal the image so I can reveal just the blanket. So press Control or Command I. Now it's filled with black. Remember, black conceals. And I was able to do that just by pressing Control or Command I. So now we're going to click on that paintbrush, bring white to your foreground color. Make sure your opacity is still at 100%. Okay, so I'm just going to start brushing where I know the blanket to be. Whoops, I'm starting to uncover some of his body right here. Notice that little dark patch. So let's bring black back to the foreground color and just paint over that. Okay, so that's looking really good, actually. If I had wanted, I can maybe change the angle, make that go up just a little bit. Okay, notice I'm hovering over the top here till I have those two arrows and just dragging down, and press Enter when you're ready to place the blanket there. I'm not really going to see the edges or the back here very much, so I'm not worried about any imperfections towards the edges. Okay, so our next step here, I'm going to go ahead and create a blank layer. So I'm going to click on my little square with the folded corner. Okay, my layer's blank. Let's go ahead and grab our eyedropper tool, and I want to pick a color within the blanket here. It's very off, very wrinkled, some of it's missing over here in the corner. It just looks horrible, so I need to fix it, and I'm going to grab a nice color that I like just by clicking anywhere on the blanket where you're really liking the color. I usually like to pick something lighter. I can always make it darker later on. Okay, so notice that color automatically appeared in the top of my color panel right there. I'm going to grab my paintbrush. It's still at 100%. And I'm just going to start painting. I like to do the outer, the outside first, and then I'll start getting in closer to baby. I'm not gonna really worry too much. I know I'm getting some on his hair right now that'll be easy to remove in just a moment. And if it gets hard or tough to see exactly where you're painting, just press that backslash key. And I'm just going to move over here to the left side. And I'm going to change the opacity, just bring it down to anywhere between 40 and 50. And I'm just going to lightly paint over the bottom there, give it that nice airy look. And I'm just going to click here and there on the top of the blanket, on the sides here. Just want that to look like a cloud. Not literally, but I just don't want it to stand out. If that makes sense. There we go. Okay, so I just need to get a little bit closer to baby. I'm going to bring that back up to 100. And I'm going to remove what I have, or the paint that I'm getting on baby here, rather, the color, in just a moment. So let's go ahead and click on our layer mask to create one, the rectangle with the circle in the middle. Remember, black conceals, so black is already at the foreground color here for me. And I can easily go in and remove that paint. Layer masks are just truly the magic of Photoshop, I believe. I use them all the time, and they really can save your editing and just make it so much easier. So definitely use them. All right, see how easy that was? We just cleaned up our blanket a lot. We'll be adding a vignette and making this look really three-dimensional as well here in just a moment. So after I get all my imperfections and everything straightened out, we had fixed the background here, we created our composite, and now I'm gonna go ahead and fix baby's skin. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to levels. Now I just clicked on this half circle here at the bottom of the layers panel. This is where you can access all of your adjustments. Okay, so I have levels. Now I'm going to start making changes, paying attention only to what it's doing to baby's skin. Obviously it's going to affect the entire image, but I'm only paying attention to his skin because we're going to be using, you guessed it, the layer mask to make that specific adjustment apply to only his skin. So when looking at levels, just remember that the top dial controls darks, the middle is midtones, and the right is your whites. On the bottom here, our left dial controls shadows and the right controls highlights. Okay, so just remember that when working with levels. So I like to start with the midtones first, and I'm just going to bring that up here. And I usually do adjust the midtones, the whites, and the darks for all the skin adjustments. I'm going to make his skin, brighten that up quite a bit here. Now, usually when you lighten and brighten, you start to lose contrast. So to bring that contrast back, you just bring up the blacks a little bit, okay? And I'm going to raise the shadows just a tad. With a lot of my images, not all, I like to add a little bit of a red to the skin, more of a healthy, glowy red. I know red can be terrible, but this is more of like a healthy glow. That's what I call it. So I'm going to click on this RGB drop down, select red, dealing with just the whites only. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit to 245. So notice the slight difference. I mean, it's ever so slight. Obviously, we don't want his skin to look red. Just that healthy glow. So I'm going to click on this eyeball before and after. Really nice. We lightened up that skin. So again, we're going to press Control or Command I to invert our mask. Grab our brush, bring white to the foreground color because white reveals. And I'm just going to start brushing that onto his face. I'm not going to be too meticulous. I'm not worried about the little toes over there. I'm just gonna bring the opacity down a little bit and get some of his hair, or all of his hair actually. Okay. And I got a little bit outside the line over here, no big deal. I'm just gonna bring black back to the foreground color, bring my opacity back up. I'm just gonna fix that real quick. There we go. Okay. So that's nice. I really like the way the skin looks there. We were just able to easily brighten that up. And now I'm going to do another one of my favorite things and just add a nice center light to the image. I'm sorry. I'm going to click on this little half circle at the bottom of the layers panel and click on gradient to do this. Okay. Likely whatever color you had at the top of your color panel over here is going to appear. We're going to change that in just a moment. Let's click next to style and we're going to select radial. Okay. And now while you have this particular panel open, you can move this. I usually refer to it as a little ball of light. It doesn't really look like one right now, but that's usually what this is used for. Let's go ahead and make sure it's right on baby there. And I'm going to click inside gradient. These bottom two dials are your color dials. So double click and select white. Double click and select white. Okay. We're going to say okay, exit out of there. It looks horrible. Probably thinking, why are you covering baby's face here? I promise we're going to fix that in just a moment. So I'm clicking on my blending mode drop down here in my layers panel. I'm going to click on overlay. It's still very, very bright, very yucky looking. Let's bring that down to 0 and just work our way up till we find it's working best with the image. I'm going to keep that right around 13. So just another extra pop of light. Really looks like you had, you know, again, this works if your lighting was off. I use natural lighting a lot with newborns in clients' homes, so I don't have all that extra equipment that I'm lugging around with me. So I learn special tricks in Photoshop to help out with that. And let's go ahead and add our vignette next. It's also added through the gradient. Okay, and we're also going to click next to style and select radial again. However, instead of our ball of light, we're going to click in that reverse box there. You can notice how we're starting to get a vignette-esque thing going on there. It's very thick and very dramatic right now. I'm going to bring the scale up to 155. Let's keep it at 133 for the moment. I might change it though. Okay, and let's go ahead and change our color. And we're going to click in that gradient box right there. Okay, one thing I like to do with my vignettes is take this top right dial and I need to cut that haze in the middle. So to do that, I'm going to bring it in towards a location of 60. Notice how that haze just went away. Notice my location here at 61, and that's fine. I don't need to be right at 60. Let's double click on that left-hand dial. I just want to make the color a little bit deeper. Oh, that's way too purple. Oh, I like that. Okay. Oh, I really like that. Okay, so I'm going to press OK. Press OK again. Notice I'm just double clicking and clicking around till I find the right color. And I'm going to press OK. Now if I still feel the vignette is too thick, I'm going to play with the scale a little bit more. The lower it is, the thicker it's going to be. Okay, we're at 100% right now. So let's bring that up to 144. I really like that. Let me try 155 real quick here. I like that too. So let me go ahead and press OK and just look at a real quick before and after. I think that's really great. Actually, if I didn't like it, I could always double click on my little layer icon and go in and make more changes. That's the beauty, again, of layers, is that you have them here. They're all accessible. I can easily click on one underneath it, double click on that little icon and make changes anytime throughout my edit. How easy is that? That's awesome. Okay, so a few more changes here. I'm going to add a little bit of haze. And to do that, I'm going to add a gradient map. So I'm clicking on my half circle. I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom and select gradient map. Click in this little color strip here. Again, I know your image is looking crazy right now, or mine is, rather. So I'm going to click on my little saved color combo. Let me double click on the bottom left layer, dial rather, and you can see my color location here. You can copy that if you'd like. And I'm going to click on the right dial. We have more of like a light buttery yellow. Okay, and this is the color combination as well. Notice the left dial, that color applies to the darks, and the color on the right dial applies to the lights. So usually, rule of thumb, you want darks on the left and lights on the right. Of course, you can always break the rules. You don't need to always follow them to a T. That's just really a generality. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of that, and we're actually going to keep the blending mode at normal. However, let's go ahead and bring that opacity way down. I usually like to go down to 0 and then just work my way up until I find it's working best with that particular image. Okay. Let's stay right around 13. Now, I really don't like a lot of haze on my subject. So if I'm adding haze to an image, I usually take some of it off of my subject. So we already have our brush selected. The layer mask is already selected as well. Notice when we add adjustments through these adjustment layers here, the layer mask automatically populates for you, which is really, really nice. So my brush is selected, black is the foreground, and if I'm removing an enhancement like this, like the haze, I want to remove a little bit at a time. So I brought my opacity down to 30%. I'm using the bracket keys to make my brush larger, and I'm just going to start brushing that haze off of my subject here, the little baby. The more I brush over a certain area, the more I'm removing. There we go. So that's really nice. Okay, a little bit of haze. And now we're going to add a little bit of a color pop through the gradient map again. So clicking on my half circle, let's select a gradient map and click inside our color strip there. I've got a red, kind of like a maroon pinkish red here. And you can see that color combo down at the bottom. Okay, and kind of a tan, a really, really light tan on the right-hand side. Click OK, exit out of there, and this time we are changing the blending mode. I'm just going to switch that to overlay. Again, very, very strong. We want to work with low opacities on these because it's really, it can be easy to overdo it. So again, starting at 0 and just working my way up, I'm going to keep that right at 10%. Look at that nice color pop though. Really also gives baby a nice healthy glow. I really, really like it. So here's another cool trick that I love to use. We're going to go down and select hue saturation. Okay, and again, it's going to look funny like most of the adjustments do until we're done with them. I'm actually going to take the saturation down to about -30, -28 is fine. I just wanted to give it like a soft, desaturated look, but this is way too much, right? So we're going to click on normal, or our blending mode rather, and we're going to change that to lighten. Let's also change the opacity. And I want to stay right around 40% there. Okay, so real quick before and after, very, very slight. Notice none of these adjustments that I'm adding make a huge, huge difference, right? It's just a little bit here and there, adding little, little adjustments, and it just really builds up to just a beautiful look. So don't think that you have to go overboard when you do add an adjustment to have that impact. Sometimes it's just a few little adjustments that make that big impact. Okay, so 2 more adjustments and we'll be done with this image. So next I'm going to add a color overlay just to give a deep, rich look. To do that, I'm going to select solid color, and I'm going to select tan color. I'm not really sure what shade of tan yet, so I may change it in a moment, but let's go ahead and click on this and press OK. And we're going to change our blending mode to multiply. Okay, and let's go ahead and bring that down to 0. Okay, so I do like that. Let me remove some from the baby here. So I clicked on my layer mask. Black is the foreground color. The opacity is 30%. I do have my brush selected. I'm just going to remove some of that from his face. And this is just a nice way to add a deep, rich color. Looks really nice. Oh, I do like that. Let me bring that opacity down again and just work my way up. That's really nice. I love it. So I'm going to keep that as is. And next we're going to move on and just define his lash line. I do this a lot with newborns and it looks just gorgeous. So let's go ahead and grab another levels panel. And I am just going to darken the image. And that's it. Now we know it's, I'm overdoing it. This is just going to be applied to the lashes. So I'm not paying attention to what's going on to the rest of the image. Let's press Control or Command I to conceal that enhancement. Okay, I'm gonna have to zoom in on his lashes here. And I have my brush selected. Let's bring white to the foreground color, white reveals. Bring the opacity up to 100%. Now the actual layer opacity, I think this might be too strong. So I'm gonna bring the layer opacity down to 50. Make sure your layer mask is selected. You want to make that brush really small so it matches the size of the lash line. There we go. If you make any mistakes, no worries. I often go out of the lines when I do the lashes. Just bring black to the foreground color, erase it, and keep going back and forth until you have that just right. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make sure. I like to bring that opacity down to 0 and just work my way up until I think it's looking really nice. We'll keep that right at 50. That looks good. So we're done. Gorgeous, simple edit. And I actually could have stopped somewhere halfway between. I just really like the look of this particular edit, and I really wanted to show you different things that you can do to add a creative look and a creative touch to your images. So really, really fun edit, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to our second image here. Okay, this is our final edit. Okay, this one's gonna be a lot quicker than the first because it's not a composite. We're just gonna edit, take out that yucky background that we have here. I just had a sheer curtain behind him. Not a really perfect setup, but I was able to edit the image to look really, really nice. So let's go ahead and jump in and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is just fill in the background with color, kind of like we did with the blanket in the last image. So let's go ahead and create a blank layer here by clicking on this little square with a folded corner. Okay, I'm gonna click on my eyedropper tool. I want to pull out a nice off-white warm color from the wood planks here. So I'm kind of clicking around. I really like this. Let's go ahead and try that out. I'm going to grab my paintbrush. It's at 100% opacity. I'm going to make it larger with my bracket key. Usually like it really large for right around the edges there. Whoop. Okay, yeah, I really like that color, so I'm going to keep that. Usually pretty messy around the edges because it doesn't really matter. And then I'll make the brush smaller and be a lot more careful once I get closer to baby or the prop as well. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit there, grab my brush again. Let's make it quite a bit smaller. I'm just gonna be a lot more meticulous as I get closer to the cradle here. Okay, and I'm just brushing along the edges. Make sure you get all those tiny little, you know, spots in between brush strokes. Sometimes there's a little spot that you might miss, so. Pretty simple. Now I'm going to add my layer mask, the little square with the circle there. Click back on my layer to paint. Almost done here. Okay, I'm really liking that. Let me click on my layer mask, bring black to the foreground color. Accidentally painted a little bit too much right here. I'm just gonna bring that back. Okay, and that's looking really, really nice. So I'm gonna zoom back out and make a few more adjustments. Let me grab my paintbrush, click on my actual layer. Notice we're working between the layer and the layer mask on this one. I'm going to make my brush quite large again, and I'm going to bring the opacity down to 30 and just kind of sweep the color on the side here. I'm just kind of clicking a few areas, so that looks really nice. So now it looks like I have a nice fade. And all I'm doing is clicking and sweeping the color over. Okay, I'm gonna click over here, make that go away. There we go. It's okay if you get some on the blanket. I'm getting a little bit of the color on the blanket hanging down here. Really, it just looks like a little bit of haze. That's fine. Okay, click on that layer mask again, and you know, if you think you removed too much, I have black in the foreground color, I can just click over here and remove a little bit of that. And that's looking really, really nice. So I'm going to keep that as is. And next we're going to enhance baby's skin. Click on that little half circle, click on levels, and we're going to brighten the skin up. So I'm going to bring this up to about 130. Let's bring the brights up as well. Okay, let's bring back some of that contrast. Okay, let's combat the brights. So I'm going to bring my highlights in a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go up to the reds. I'm actually going to bring the mid-tone down just slightly as well. So let's look at that before and after. Really, really nice. Exit out. Press Control or Command I. Now notice I'm going to bring white to the foreground color. Let's bring that brush opacity back up to 100%. I'm not going to brush this on this left highlight because it's already a highlight. It's already bright. So I don't really want to make that any brighter. So I'm just... Let me bring black to the foreground. I think I got a little bit on that highlight there, and I just really don't want to over accentuate that. And I'm also going to take some off of his hair. I don't want that to be too bright. Okay, so that looks really nice. I like that. And next we're going to add a gradient map. So clicking on my half circle, I'm going to scroll down and select gradient map. And we're going to select that same red, kind of pinkish red combination that I had before. Okay. Now, if you find a combination that you love, once you select the colors, simply hit New and it will save it in your panel. Mine went a little bit crazy here. I don't know how I got all those colors, so I have to go in and reset and resave some of these. And I'm just going to press OK. And we're going to change the blending mode to overlay. Okay, let's go ahead and change our opacity. I'll keep that right around, let's see, 12%. I really like that. Okay, so this time we're adding another hue saturation panel. Instead of desaturating, I'm gonna go ahead and add some color. Again, it's gonna look pretty oversaturated. And just so you know, I brought that up to plus 45. Okay, I'm going to switch the blending mode to lighten, and I'm going to take the opacity down here. Just gonna keep that right around 25, 26. Okay, a little bit of a glow and a nice color pop. This is a wonderful way of adding that soft color pop to your image. So let's go ahead and add the second gradient map. I'm gonna add the brown combo this time. Click inside my color strip, brown and butter. Press OK. And we're going to keep the blending mode at normal and just bring that opacity down. Keep that right around 21 and just brush the haze off of him. So black foreground color, I have my brush. Let's bring the opacity down to about 30 and just start brushing that off. I'm gonna brush it off of the cradle and some of the blanket as well. Okay, so I really like that. And you can see, again, looking at your layer mask, the black is where you had brushed off. Let's see here. So also if you press the backslash key, if you're having trouble seeing where you brushed, press that backslash key and you can see all the red is where you brushed, and you can press it again to make it go away. Next we're going to add a vignette. We only have 2 more adjustments here for this image and we'll be done. And to add a vignette, as you remember, we're going to click on gradient. Click next to style, select radial. Let's reverse it by checking in that reverse box right there. Let's bring this, let's try 155. Again, we might change that in a moment. I'm gonna click inside the gradient box. Let's bring that top right dial into a location of 60. Just cuts the haze. And let's change the color on our bottom left and right dials. I'm actually gonna click opposite here. Get like a really light pinkish tan. I like that. Double click on the bottom right. Okay, I really like that. This is a really, really subtle color vignette. Press OK, press OK. I really like 155. Let me see what it looks like at 140. No, let's keep that at 155. Really nice. So just a before and after. It really finishes off the image and gives it a really nice glow. So next we're just gonna do the lashes again. So let's go ahead and click on levels. We're just gonna darken it up. I don't really have any specific numbers. I just darken it up a little bit there. Bring the darks and the midtones over to the right. Bring the opacity to about 50, and let's click on that layer mask and press Control or Command I. Okay, we inverted the mask, it's concealed. I have my brush selected. Let's bring white to the foreground color, white reveals, and we're gonna bring the opacity back up. Let's go ahead and just zoom in on him a little bit here. Make that brush super, super small so you can match the lash line. Ta-da! Looks awesome. I love it. Okay, so let's just make sure. Yeah, I like it right around 50%. I really love to do before and after, so I'm going to group these real quick here. Let's see. New group from layers. This is what we started off with, guys, and after making just a few changes, ta-da! It looks awesome. I love it. Photoshop is so much fun. It's so easy to use, so forgiving if you have to go back and change a color that you had added or an adjustment layer. Super, super simple. Thanks so much for watching.